Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We wrapped up intrapersonal communication in the last lecture, so today we are going to move right into interpersonal communication. Just kind of a recap: intrapersonal communication is communication with yourself, and intercommunication is communication with others. I also just wanted to thank everyone for being so patient with me. I'd planned to post this video about a week ago, but unfortunately, life had different plans. I tested positive for the flu. My temperature got up to 102.5. It's been a little bit of a brutal process. I've also still been recovering from surgery, so I think because of that, it hit me a little bit harder otherwise than it would have, but definitely not back to 100% yet, but doing a little bit better. Hopefully no one else has had the flu, but it has been definitely a rough week or so. My fever has subsided, still have a little bit of a cough, and feel better than I did, but working on getting back to 100%. But we're going to go ahead and dive into the interpersonal communication, which again, communication with others. Now, as you will see as we move through the semester, the intrapersonal communication, which is communication with yourself, that kind of serves as the building block to everything else in your life and all other forms of communication. You have to have a strong internal foundation and a strong relationship with yourself in order for other relationships to thrive. So you will kind of start to see that everything builds upon that. Intrapersonal communication is communication with yourself, then it leads into interpersonal communication. Interpersonal communication does have typically a few different definitions depending on the textbook. We don't actually have a textbook in this class. I teach this class at other colleges, and some of the textbooks are a little bit different, but technically the interpersonal is defined as communication with more than one person, usually maybe two, and then after that it gets to small group communication. And small group communication is defined as communication with more than two people that is less than 20. So the interpersonal could be 3, but then it kind of starts to go into a small group setting. And some of you may think that 20 people seem like a large crowd, but by textbook definition, it is still classified as small group. And then anything after that is not actually defined as public speaking until you have more than 20 people that you're talking to. But for today, we're going to talk about the interpersonal communication. It is defined as the exchange of information between at least 2 people. Information can include thoughts, feelings, ideas, and so much more. Whenever you think about interpersonal communication and how you build your relationships with people, it is essentially the change or exchange of information. And you sometimes meet people that you share a lot about yourself with, and others not so much. It all just kind of depends on the dynamic of the relationship. For example, in a work setting, you may disclose little information to your coworkers and other employees, whereas someone who is a potential friend, or you're building or forming a relationship to become friends, or a person of romantic interest, eventually you may disclose more about yourself. If you do not know what self-disclosure is essentially you sharing information. And there's different levels of self-disclosure. We're going to talk about that a little bit more here in a little while. But right now, I want to kind of dive into the types of ways that you can communicate interpersonally. I always ask this question in the classroom, And whenever I ask, what are some ways that you can communicate interpersonally, everyone always reverts to digital. People think about email, text message. They think about how you communicate on social media, on Facebook, on Instagram, all of the social platforms. But that is only one way of how we communicate interpersonally. It is not just in a digital setting. It is also in face-to-face interactions. Take a moment to kind of think about some ways that you communicate interpersonally with other people. Maybe jot down a list of a few things, but it is any time that you are interacting with someone else. And also, by definition, it has to be effective communication. So the other person has to actually understand the message that you are trying to convey in order for it to be classified as interpersonal communication. If you talk to someone and they don't talk back, then that is not a type of interpersonal communication, because they have to also be able to engage in that conversation. If you comment on someone's Facebook and they don't comment back on the post, that's not interpersonal, because you do not have a response. But there are a lot of things included in the interpersonal communication style. One of those things is verbal, which we've kind of already talked about, but it goes more than that. Your tone of voice matters. It's not just what you say, it's also how you say it. Your nonverbal expressions. If you are kind of looking down, or if somebody's like twirling their hair, or maybe they're just tapping their nails and they're not fully paying attention, that's not going to make you as an individual feel like you're being heard. It is human nature to want to be heard, seen, valued, appreciated for all of our thoughts, and you want to be listened to. And if somebody is not paying attention to you, then it doesn't make you feel very good. There is a book by Simon Sinek. It is called Leaders Eat Last. You may have heard of it. It's not part of this curriculum, but I would highly encourage you to look it up. It is a phenomenal book. But you also may have heard of the quote. Again, back to the quotes. Sorry if you get tired of them. I'm a huge fan of all the motivational quotes. But people will never forget how you made them feel. They may forget what you say, but they will never forget or how you made them feel. And that being said, is if you're not paying attention to somebody in the midst of a conversation, they're going to remember that. Have you ever been in a situation, I'm sure we all have at some point or time, to where you were overwhelmed, maybe you had a bad day and you just needed someone to listen, and then you talk to them and then you tell them whatever it is, and then they're like, okay, well, let me tell you about me. And then they instantly change the subject. It makes you think like, well, the reason why I just called you because I needed you to listen to me, not me to listen to you. And that's okay, but there's always going to be points to where we need someone else to listen to us. But if someone just shuts you out and doesn't pay attention, it's just not a very good feeling. So that is kind of what that book is about. Leaders Eat Last, teaching you to put other people before you. So your tone of voice, nonverbal expressions, your facial expression, you can tell a lot by what a person is thinking or feeling just based upon their hand gestures or their eye contact, the way that they carry themselves. All of those things matter. Your body language. If somebody's talking to you and they have their arms crossed, or maybe they're leaning up against a wall, all of those things dictate and demonstrate how they feel without them even saying a word about it. One of Simon Sinek's videos, I follow him a lot. He posts a lot of phenomenal content. But one of the things he does in his video is he actually has his phone in his hand and he's walking on stage and he's just walking across and he's walking back and forth. He's not even looking at his phone, but he just has it in his hand. If there is something in someone else's hand, especially their phone, even if they're making direct eye contact with you and they're not fully paying attention to you, then that is a distraction, and it would make you feel like they're not even paying attention to you. So it's incredibly important how you show up. You're always setting an example, and you're always setting a role model for yourself to others of how you're showing up, how your characteristics are, what your personality traits are, especially in the business world. People are always watching you. If you're somebody that's late all the time, people are watching. If you're somebody that is always on their phone and you're not paying attention, people are watching. All of those things matter. You can actually put interpersonal skills on a resume. Some people don't know that, and they are actually really surprised when I tell them that. But interpersonal skills are not something that just comes naturally. It is something that has to be learned. It's something that has to be developed. So being able to put those skills on a resume will speak highly favorable of you in different employers. So don't just put it on there just to put it on there. Make sure that you have put in the work and you have learned how to develop and implement those skills, because it can definitely take you places. A lot of people like to work independently, but 9 times out of 10, employers want to see that you can interact well in a team setting, because most jobs you at some point have to have some sort of team interaction. So having the ability to listen, understand, it also develops your problem solving skills, your decision making skills, and personal stress management. When I say the problem solving skills, what that means is a lot of times we get caught up in our head about our own personal stressors, or just things that are going on in our own world. We also have been programmed to believe or feel certain things, which make up our personality. That being said, sometimes it is difficult to give somebody else our full attention, especially if it is something that differs from your opinion. If you can train yourself to just listen, to see what the other person has to say, then especially if you don't agree, then it can enhance your problem solving skills. We are always being molded and shaped based upon our environments and all of our interactions. But even if you don't agree with somebody, if you can just listen, then that's going to help you grow. And that is also going to help you be a better problem solver and a better leader, because you're allowing yourself to be open-minded to a different point of view, to a different perspective. Even if you don't agree with them, it's still teaching you about someone else's viewpoint. Or perhaps you could be inspired by what they believe in. I want you to take a moment. You can pause the video if you want, or you can do it after this video. But think about someone that you send a text message to on a regular basis. It could be your mom, your sister, your spouse, husband, wife, just someone that you talk to on a regular basis that's not in this class. People always want to do it to somebody in the classroom. So don't do that. Just someone outside of this class, and send them a text message. I don't want you to say anything else except the word ready. Just ready. But before you send it, I want you to think about it. Be creative. Don't just say ready. You could send R and then send, and then E and then send, A and then send, D and then send, Y and then send. So you could send one letter at a time. You could put ready in all caps. You could put a bunch of exclamation points. You could put a bunch of question marks. You could put ... You could make one letter capital. Just say the word ready in whatever capacity you want to say it, and then wait to see what their response is. And then don't tell them that it's for an assignment until after you already have them responding. In the classroom, this gets a little fun because different people say different things. Sometimes people say, okay, let's go. And they just roll with it, even though they have no idea what that person's talking about, honestly. But they're like, okay, or ready whenever you are. Those are the types of responses I'm looking for. Some people might be like, huh, what are you talking about? Or, what do you mean? But the thing is when it comes to how you present yourself in an interpersonal interaction, with a conversation with somebody else, during a speech, just how you show up, it is not just what you say, it is how you say it. The word ready could have, by textbook definition, it really just has one meaning, but how you say it with whatever emphasis completely changes the dynamic. If somebody said, ready, or ready, or ready, all of those things have different meanings, but it's the same word. So think about how you say it. And all of these things that we talk about, I don't want you to feel pressured to show up for all of your speeches and be a master of public speaking overnight. All of these things take time. It takes years of practice to work on your communication skills and to be a better communicator. So be gentle with yourself. It's not something that is going to just happen overnight. So keep that in mind as we move forward through this. As far as personal stress management, this is huge when it comes to being a better leader, and having those interpersonal interactions can tremendously help you manage your own stress. And at first you may be thinking, how can me just talking to somebody else help me with my own stress? The reason why is because we all have internal stressors, external factors. There's always things that could potentially cause stress or feelings of unease. You could be dealing with a death in the family, or maybe you have a sick child. Maybe you're a caregiver for somebody, or you're sick, or you have some health issues. There's all kinds of things. You could be on your way to class and there's a wreck, so you end up being 20 minutes late. And if that's the day you have to give a speech, you're going to be all frazzled. Oh my gosh, I'm trying to get there on time. But if you're in a good headspace, there's, no traffic, and then you get there on time, that's going to create an entirely different external environment for you and how you feel whenever you deliver your speech. So whenever you're talking to someone, it is difficult to filter out those things of whatever's going on in your head so you can be fully present. But the goal is to focus and be mindful and present of the present moment, so that way you can, whenever you filter out all of your other stressors and whatever else is in your mind, and you're trying to be present and focus on the person in front of you, then that overall helps with your stress management, because we have brains. They're meant to think. They're meant to have thoughts. I always hear people say, oh my gosh, I wish I could just stop the thoughts in my head. I wish I could turn my brain off for a little while. But they're brains. They're made to think. So they're going to think. But it takes extra intentional effort to be mindful and present in the moment that you're in, to be able to focus on the person in front of you and just that conversation. But all of those things overall is going to make you a better communicator. So going back to scenarios of when you may communicate interpersonally with somebody, just to name a few, it could be during interviews, restaurants, if you order your food and it's wrong, being able to speak up and ask for what you want at a restaurant. Sometimes people don't feel comfortable speaking up and asking for what they want. That could be in a relationship, a romantic relationship, or it could be as simple as if they didn't cook your steak how you wanted it and not sending it back. But being able to focus on your intrapersonal communication, build your confidence, it's going to overflow into all of those other areas. So at your apartment complex, car wash, if you're planning a trip and you talk to a travel agency, at school, friends, family, the bank, the grocery store, everywhere you go and you're talking to somebody, it is interpersonal interaction. And that's going to follow through with you everywhere. One story that I like to tell at my apartment complex, this has been several years ago, probably like 7 years ago, 8 years ago. It's been a while, but I lived on the 3rd floor of my apartment at the time, and there was a minor air conditioner leak. Maintenance was coming in to fix it. I was going to be out for a few hours. I had to run some errands, maybe go to the grocery store, go to the nail salon, something like that. I was gone for maybe like 3 hours. And it was a beautiful day in July, 85, 90 degrees, super sunny. And maintenance was going to be in my apartment. They said it would just take them maybe 10 or 15 minutes to fix, no big deal. I left, come back maybe 3-4 hours later, however long I was gone, and my entire yard was flooded. I got out of my car and I knew they were going to be working on the air conditioner, but I was like, no way that's from my apartment. There's just no way. I walk up, slowly open my door, trying to brace myself just in case, and I step in and the carpet was nothing but mush. I go to my bedroom, or it's like kind of in the hallway. It was a utility closet where the pipe to the AC was, and the water's just gushing out everywhere. I go to the office. They had apparently only been in my apartment for maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It had been going off for hours. Fast forward, come to find out the floor below me and below them, 2 floors had flooded. The ceiling was caved in. One of the girls had just gotten brand new furniture and it was destroyed. It was not a good situation. The carpet company comes out and they have these big dryers, these big fans, and they leave them there for about 2 weeks. And then they come back 2 weeks later. The guy that comes to pick them up after the carpet's already dried out, so I thought, he asked if I moved the fans. And I mean, these are massive commercial fans. I don't even think I could have lifted them. They were very, heavy, and they were bigger than me. And I was like, no, definitely haven't touched them. And he said that they did it wrong. They were supposed to put them underneath the carpet, not on top. And he said, this is a bad situation for mold. If you don't figure something out, mold is going to set in. He said, it is not safe to stay here, especially if you're allergic to mold. Of course, I'm highly allergic to mold. So I decided to go to the office and explain the situation, ask them what we could do. Maybe took a little bit of negotiating, but I eventually talked them into giving me a 2-bedroom for the price of 1. Some people, and probably most people, may have just sat back and just said, oh my gosh, there's nothing I can do. This is my apartment. This is where I live. But because I had worked on those interpersonal skills, because I had worked on that self-confidence related to intrapersonal communication, I had the courage and the confidence to ask for what I want. I had the courage and confidence to ask to be accommodated. If I had never asked, then I would have never gotten a 2-bedroom for the price of 1. So I like to share that story because if people don't take the time to develop those interpersonal skills, sometimes you just sit back and settle for things that are mediocre in life that you wouldn't settle for otherwise if you had developed those skills. So I highly encourage you to work on all of those things because it will truly pay off in every single aspect of your life. You gain so many things by working on those interpersonal communication skills. So, going back to the video that I posted by Warren Buffett about how communication is unique and the unusual stand out. It is also so important, kind of tying into the intrapersonal communication lecture, that we talk about those things because society wants you or has this certain standardization of what you're supposed to be, but it is important to show up fully and authentically as you, because that is ultimately going to help you overall. But learning the interpersonal communication can help improve the quality of all of your relationships. It improves your mental and emotional health. Just having connection, being vulnerable with people, and having the opportunity to connect with others. We're humans. We're made to communicate. We're made to connect. That's one of the key purposes why we're here. And it can truly be a beautiful thing if you learn how to implement those skills. So as far as improving those interpersonal skills, there's lots of ways that can be done, but a few things to keep in mind. Networking, you could go to LinkedIn to network in a digital environment. There's lots of different business networking groups. You can practice empathy. It is important. It is so important. Probably one of the most important human skills is to empathize with others. If somebody's having a bad day, be able to empathize. Oh my gosh, I am so sorry. Or if someone had a death in the family, I am so sorry for your loss. But working on those things, also showing the interest in others, like we talked about, the leaders eat last, learning to control your emotions, and just overall developing a positive attitude. One thing that I want to kind of wrap up with for interpersonal communication, there is a theory called social penetration theory, and I love social penetration theory. I would encourage you to research it more outside of this, but social penetration theory is also known as the onion theory. It compares relationships to an onion. And if you think about it, if you've ever been in the kitchen and you're cutting an onion, you start to cry as you get closer to the center of the onion. There's actually a chemical in the middle of the onion. I forgot what the chemical's called, but that chemical makes you cry. The exterior layers of the onion don't make you cry. Whenever you start to develop a relationship, relationships are much like this onion. And for the analogy, the exterior layers of the onion don't make you cry. So that would be something simple about yourself that you are self-disclosing, things that you're sharing with other people. The exterior layers could be your favorite color, where you work, what you drive, if you have any pets, just very basic, simple things that you don't care who knows. But as you get closer to being more vulnerable and disclosing more about yourself, that's when those bonds start to form. You peel back the layers of yourself one by one as you get closer to somebody else. And all relationships aren't meant to develop a deep level of closeness, but the things that are the core of you, of your personality, of your well-being, those are the more private details. Your biggest fears, the things that could make you cry, your childhood trauma, or just things that you're not going to share with the whole world. So the center of an onion, in comparison, are those deeper things, are the center of us. According to theory, you have to kind of maintain the same level of closeness throughout the relationship. There is, and again, this is just a theory, doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It's just one of my favorite theories because I find it to be incredibly accurate. But as you peel back those layers, then you have to maintain that same level of closeness or the relationship can fail. It doesn't matter. There's not a timeline of how long it takes to do that, but it's just you have to stay and keep going towards the center. If for some reason you get closer to the center and then you backtrack, then the relationship can never reach that same level of depth or level of closeness. So but like people that are your coworkers, you have certain acquaintances that you're not ever going to develop that same level of closeness with. So I will leave you with that as a final thought. If you have any questions about interpersonal communication or about social penetration theory or self-disclosure, please feel free to reach out and I will be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. I hope everyone has a wonderful day and I will look forward to chatting with you next time.